Old Billy was gone, vanished without a trace. What he left behind were no ordinary writings, but fragments of truth and provocation. Aphorisms about love, art, fear, forgiveness, and the hidden ghosts we carry. In this episode, we'll dive into his mixed lines and see how they challenge not just conventional wisdom, but even the foundations of major religious traditions.
In this reading circle, we unfold the mixed lines, and you may never see these ideas the same way again.
When the fog descended, silence settled over the village after the discovery of Old Billy's departure. His notes were left stacked, serving as entertainment for the locals who chose to share them with others.
Number 034 Mixed lines.
Love.
Indefinable matter, body of life and life of bodies, catalyst of opposites, father and mother of us all, the broken compass of many and the natural guidance of all.
Art.
Art is a lie invented to tell truths.
Error.
For there to be an error, there would need to be an end. The same applies to correctness.
Forgiveness.
An inappropriate substitute for love. Those who do not know how to love apply the law of forgiveness, which is entirely rational, and it is a dangerous deviation from the fertile life or love that cancels this fallible superiority complex.
Guilt.
Guilt is the living ghost of a dead past.
Fear.
Fear is the best place to hide from one's own soul.
Rejection.
A diamond in the trash is still a diamond.
This is a collection of aphoristic statements, each offering a concise and provocative perspective on a fundamental aspect of human experience. Here's a commentary on these mixed lines. Overall impression. The set of thoughts is characterized by its poetic language, philosophical depth, and a tendency to challenge conventional wisdom. It aims to provoke reflection and offer alternative perspectives on complex concepts. Individual comments. The definition of love as indefinable matter and catalyst of opposites is intriguingly paradoxical. It captures the elusive and transformative nature of love. The idea of love as both broken compass and natural guidance highlights its potential for both confusion and clarity. This is a very strong and poetic definition. Art. Art is a lie invented to tell truths is a classic artistic paradox. It suggests that art's power lies in its ability to transcend literal representation and reveal deeper truths. This is a very effective and well-known concept. Error. This statement challenges the binary of right and wrong, suggesting that they are relative and dependent on a fixed endpoint. This thought provokes consideration of the nature of time and progress. Forgiveness. The critique of forgiveness as a substitute for love is provocative. It suggests that forgiveness can be a rational, rather than emotional act that perpetuates a sense of superiority. This is a very strong and controversial statement. Guilt. Guilt is the living ghost of a dead past is a powerful metaphor that captures the lingering and haunting nature of guilt. This is a very effective metaphor. Fear. This statement highlights the self-deceptive nature of fear, suggesting that it serves as a barrier to self-discovery. This is a very insightful observation. Rejection. This statement offers a powerful image of intrinsic value, suggesting that worth is independent of external validation. This is a very strong and positive statement. General observations. The set of thoughts demonstrates a preference for challenging conventional perspectives and exploring the complexities of human experience. The use of concise and evocative language enhances the impact of each statement. The set of thoughts leans heavily into emotional and spiritual concepts.
This set of thoughts provides a rich source of reflection and discussion. How do these statements relate to your own experiences and beliefs? Do you agree with the critique of forgiveness? What are the implications of viewing errors as relative? How does the concept of love, as described here, differ from typical societal concepts of love?
I feel a natural resonance with what old Billy wrote in this note, but it has always been difficult for me to explain it to people, especially when it comes to forgiveness. I never liked how it places the forgiver in a position of superiority over the forgiven. I think I have some resistance to religious traditions and the way most people use these topics to manipulate the faithful. Could Dr. Ada give us an overview of how the major religious traditions view these ideas?
'Tis my pleasure, Ivy. Old Billy's set of thoughts presents a philosophical and somewhat unconventional perspective, which intersects with religious traditions in some ways but diverges in others. Here's a general assessment of its alignment with major religious traditions. High concordance. Love. Most religious traditions emphasize love as a fundamental force. Christianity describes God as love itself. Buddhism speaks of loving kindness, metta, and Hinduism considers love, bhakti, a path to enlightenment. The idea of love as the essence of life aligns well with these teachings. Many religious traditions use art to convey spiritual truths, such as sacred texts, paintings, architecture, and music. The idea that art is a lie to tell truths could be interpreted as a way to express deeper realities beyond literal perception, aligning with mysticism in various traditions. Guilt. Some religious traditions recognize guilt as an internal burden, but also offer ways to release it through atonement, confession, or redemption. Christianity, Judaism, Islam. The idea of guilt as a ghost of the past aligns with Buddhist and Hindu views, which emphasize non-attachment and transcending past suffering. Moderate concordance. Fear. Many traditions acknowledge fear as a spiritual barrier. Christianity warns against excessive fear, emphasizing trust in God, while Buddhism teaches that fear arises from attachment and illusion. However, religions also use fear, for example, fear of divine judgment, as a motivator for ethical behavior, which contrasts with the statement that fear is merely hiding from one's own soul. Rejection. The idea that value, like a diamond in the trash, is inherent and unaffected by rejection aligns with religious teachings on human dignity. Christianity, Islam, Hinduism. However, some traditions also emphasize the importance of social belonging and divine acceptance, which complicates the concept. Low concordance. Forgiveness. Most religious traditions see forgiveness as a divine virtue and essential for spiritual growth. The statement that forgiveness is a dangerous deviation challenges traditional views, as Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism emphasize its necessity. The critique of forgiveness as a form of superiority, however, resonates with some mystical interpretations, which emphasize unconditional love over hierarchical moral judgment. Here are some passages as example of low concordance. Christianity. Forgiveness is central. Jesus taught to forgive endlessly. Matthew 18 verses 21 to 22. Islam. God is the most merciful, Ar-Rahman, and believers should seek and offer forgiveness. Buddhism. True forgiveness arises from understanding and detachment. Hinduism. Dharma, righteous duty, includes forgiveness, yet justice also has its place. Many religions acknowledge the idea of sin, karma, or moral responsibility, implying that error has real consequences. The statement that, for an error to exist, there must be an end, challenges traditions that emphasize moral accountability and spiritual correction. Some examples. Christianity. Mistakes are part of the human condition, but grace redeems. Sin is real, but so is salvation. Buddhism. Error is part of samsara, the cycle of suffering, yet all is impermanent, making ultimate error an illusion. Hinduism. Karma dictates that errors have consequences, but wisdom and devotion lead beyond them. Conclusion. Old Billy's set of thoughts aligns closely with spiritual traditions that emphasize love, inner wisdom, and detachment, such as Buddhism and mystical branches of Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism. However, it challenges traditional religious structures regarding forgiveness, sin, and the role of fear.
But what about the Judaism?
I didn't mention Judaism because I knew that Brian had already researched it. So, Brian, please share what you found with us.
Judaism, with its deep philosophical, legal, and mystical traditions, would engage with the original set of thoughts in a nuanced way. Here's how Jewish thought might relate to each concept. Love. In Judaism, ahava, love, is central, particularly in the relationship between people. Love your neighbor as yourself, Leviticus 19:18, and between humanity and God. The idea of love as a guiding force aligns well with Jewish thought, especially within Kabbalah, where divine love is seen as the energy that sustains existence. However, love in Judaism is often intertwined with duty and ethical responsibility, rather than being purely an undefined or chaotic force. Art. While traditional Jewish law, halacha, has had restrictions on certain forms of art, for example, graven images, Jewish mysticism and philosophy recognize the power of art and storytelling to reveal deeper truths. The concept that art is a lie that tells the truth resonates with midrashic traditions, which use allegory, parables, and even fiction to convey profound truths. The Talmud itself is filled with stories that are not necessarily historical, but serve to communicate moral and theological principles. Error. Judaism does not view mistakes as final. Rather, teshuvah, repentance, is a core principle. Since human life is a continuous process, there is always an opportunity to correct and grow. This aligns with the idea that for an error to exist, there must be an end. But Judaism would emphasize that there is always a chance to rectify and improve. Forgiveness. Forgiveness in Judaism is complex. Unlike some religious traditions where forgiveness is absolute, in Judaism, one must seek forgiveness from the person they have wronged before God grants atonement. The idea that forgiveness is a rational substitute for love would be debated in Jewish thought. On one hand, Yom Kippur emphasizes atonement, but on the other, true forgiveness is expected to come from compassion rather than obligation. Judaism might challenge the idea that forgiveness is a dangerous deviation, but would agree that love is the higher ideal. Guilt. Judaism acknowledges guilt as a necessary step toward teshuvah, but it does not endorse perpetual guilt. Once atonement is made, a person is encouraged to move forward rather than be haunted by their past. The statement that guilt is the living ghost of a dead past aligns with Jewish teachings that emphasize transformation over punishment. Fear. Fear plays a dual role in Judaism. Yirat Hashem, fear of God, is considered a virtue when it refers to awe and respect for divine wisdom. However, fear that paralyzes or distances one from personal growth would be seen negatively. The idea that fear is the best place to hide from one's own soul aligns with Jewish teachings that encourage facing challenges rather than retreating into fear-based avoidance. Rejection. The notion that a diamond in the trash is still a diamond strongly aligns with Jewish thought. The concept of Tselem Elohim, being created in God's image, means that every person has intrinsic worth regardless of their status or how society perceives them. Many Jewish stories and teachings emphasize that those who are rejected by society can be the ones closest to divine truth. For example, King David, who was initially overlooked, or the many Talmudic sages who came from humble or troubled backgrounds. Conclusion: Judaism would resonate with many of the thoughts, especially the emphasis on growth, transformation, and the depth of human experience. However, it might push back against the idea that forgiveness is merely a rational construct or that guilt is purely a ghost. Instead, these concepts serve a purpose in ethical and spiritual development.
Wow. When I first saw the mix lines, I thought this note's discussion would be wrapped up in minutes. But you guys really took it far this time. That's a clear sign you're enjoying being part of this. Well, since we've already lost track of time, allow me to share what I've learned about forgiveness. If you have to think about someone's fault or mistake, then you are thinking, which means it's a rational process, leaving no room for compassion or any true connection to love. From my perspective, the predominant concept of forgiveness is nothing more than a manipulative game, with little good to be said about it. That said, let's keep in mind that, for old Billy, what matters most is not what we hold in our minds, strange as that may sound, but rather what can be drawn from our essence. Thanks, everyone. This was a deep dive. I appreciate you all.